Hello friends! In this video, you'll learn everything important about Katya Vinogradova's lash lift shields, or for short, the Vinog shields. I'll explain how these shields differ, what sizes and shapes they come in, and also discuss some nuances of working with them. My name is Vlada, and I'm a lash lift artist and instructor. Let's start with the most basic points. For example, when you go to marketplaces or the brand's official website, you'll see that the shields come in several colors. And right away, the question arises, what is the difference between them? So the only difference between shields of different colors, and they come in sky blue, lilac, and as of just a couple of days ago when this video was recorded, a new color was introduced. Yellow is the color itself. The difference between each color of shield lies specifically in the type of silicone material used. The sky blue shields are extremely soft, truly ultra soft. According to the manufacturer, these shield sands, specifically the material they're made from, are ideal for technicians who work with soft or minimal tension techniques. Let me make a quick note right away. What exactly is tension? When we perform a lash lamination procedure and place the lashes onto the shield, we can lay them out with varying degrees of tension. You can apply very strong tension, that is, when the lashes are pulled tightly and stretched firmly over the shield. Or you can work using the soft tension technique. In this particular case, the delicate lashes aren't really pulled. They're simply placed gently onto the protective shield and stretched only very slightly. In fact, if we talk about which technique is correct and which is not, there isn't a definitive answer here. It's just that more likely each technician works differently. And here the main criteria are, first of all, the client's comfort. That is, whether the client feels any pain during the lash placement or the procedure itself, as well as the final result. In other words, do we actually get a curl when we stretch the lashes over the shield like this? You can overstretch the lashes, which can result in no curl at all. Or you might not stretch the lashes enough, in which case some of the lashes will just be left hanging in the air, the shield will be positioned incorrectly, and as a result, first, you'll get a weak curl, and second, you'll have drooping sections. In other words, instead of the lash lifting straight up like this, it will first go downward and only then curve upward. This is what we call drooping when the lash is in this kind of position. But these are already considered mistakes in lash lamination. However, if a technician is simply working with either the weak tension technique or the strong tension technique, these are not mistakes. They're just slightly different methods. And if first of all, the client feels comfortable, and secondly, the results of your work are visible and impressive with a nice curl, then congratulations, you can keep working as you are, everything is great. There's no need to change your technique here, because I know that trends in lash lamination keep changing. There was a time when it was fashionable to stretch the lashes really tightly over the rod to achieve a perfectly smooth placement. At some point, on the contrary, it became trendy to use the weak tension technique. But the most important thing here is your comfort and the comfort of your client. To sum up regarding the blue rods, they are suitable for technicians who prefer working with the weak tension technique. The next color of rods is lilac. And let's include the yellow rods here as well, because in terms of their material, the hardness and softness of the silicone, these rods are the same. If we compare them to the sky blue ones, the lilac and yellow rods are a bit firmer, but you definitely can't call these rods hard silicone, because that's not the case. These rods are also very soft, but not as soft as the blue ones. That's precisely why these particular rods are commonly referred to as having a medium hardness. As for the actual shape itself, for instance, if we carefully consider the sky blue colored rods in size number 2 and the lilac colored rods also in size number 2 in terms of their overall form, precise shape, and geometric configuration, these specific rods will be found to be absolutely and completely identical in every single aspect. The only difference between them will be the color. Personally, I have rods of all colors in my toolkit, and I use all of them working with clients on these rods. So you can also try different colors, different materials, and then draw your own conclusions. If I personally had to choose between the blue, lilac, and yellow rods, I would still choose the lilac and, well, the yellow rods. I prefer medium hardness silicone. The rods come in quite a wide range of sizes. And if just a couple of short years ago there were only the standard size 2, 3, and 4 rods available, now of course the brand is continually evolving and diligently releasing new and innovative rods in a wider array of new sizes. And now we proudly have 9 distinct and versatile different sizes, starting from the very compact size 1 and progressively going all the way up to the larger size 5. The size 1 rod is designed for very short lashes, while the size 5 rod is for extra long lashes. The brand's manufacturer has made sure that even beginner technicians can easily determine which rod size to use for a particular client. And the rule for choosing a rod is very simple. When a client comes to you and you realize that, the wreath rods are perfect here, the client lies down and you start by fitting the rod, that is, placing it against the eyelid. Without any glue yet, you place the rod and simply use a micro brush to lay the lashes onto the rod, as if simulating your actions during the actual application. But, I repeat, still without glue at this stage. And here you need to make sure that the ends of the lashes reach the end of the rod. The rods have a working surface. The working surface is the area where we actually work with the lashes. That's where we do the lash placement, apply the solution, glue, and so on. Above that, there is a petal-shaped part. We only use the petal, for example, to rest our fingers on it, to hold the rod in place during the lash placement. But the lashes should not go onto this petal. They should be placed only on the working surface. And specifically, the ends of the lashes should reach the end of the working surface, then the rod is the correct size. It might happen that the lashes almost reach the end of the working surface. There might literally be, just 1 millimeter left to the end. In that case, you can still use this rod, because during the lash placement process, we apply tension and the lashes will reach the end of the working surface. What happens if we choose the wrong size rod? If it so happens that we meticulously choose a particular rod and the very ends of the lashes only manage to reach approximately 60% of the entire rod's length, this specifically means that there is still a considerably large and significant area of the working surface that remains completely unused and therefore inefficient. In other words, the lashes end before they should. The lashes are shorter than needed for this size, then in that case we will simply get a weaker curl that is a less pronounced bend. And if, on the contrary, the lashes extend beyond the working surface, then we will get a stronger curl. And in principle, this second option is also valid. Sometimes I myself choose a rod one size smaller. The ends of my lashes are hanging in the air. They are not positioned on the working surface, which allows me to achieve a curl that is stronger than what I would get with the rod that actually fits. But in this case, there is an important point. The solutions must not get on the ends of the lashes that are hanging in the air, because then we risk simply creasing them, laying them down in an unattractive way, and they will set in this unattractive shape and end up not straight but crooked or something like that. But you can certainly tint the eyelashes when the very tips are in the air, because the dye only colors them. It exclusively affects the color, not the actual shape. A size range of 9 rods allows us to work with absolutely any lashes, whether they are extra short or, on the contrary, super long. But of course, when you just want to try out these rods, or for example, if you're a beginner, there's really no need for you to buy a huge number of different rods just yet. The most commonly used rods are, of course, the medium-sized ones. That is to say, sizes 2, 2.5, 3 and 3.5 respectively. Because, well, most often our clients come to us with medium-length lashes, Basically, these sizes will be absolutely sufficient to work with the majority of clients. When you buy size 5 for extra long lashes, you'll end up using it very rarely. 90% of the time, it will just be sitting there unused. But we never know in advance what kind of lashes our clients will have, right? New clients. And it's great when you have shields for every occasion. What is the difference between these shields specifically in terms of their shape? You know, in the field of lash lamination, there are actually a huge variety of shields, because this is one of our main tools for creating the curl. And very often, for example, when you watch different reviews of other brands of shields, you might see a situation where the instructor says that these shields have a certain shape, they're suitable for some types of lashes, but not for others. But with Katya Vinogradova's shields, that's basically not the case, because they literally suit all types of lashes. Lashes that grow downward, you can use them. Lashes that grow straight, you can use them. Lashes with their own natural curl, you can use them. Hooded eyelids, you can use them too. No hooded eyelid, fully open eyelid, also suitable. But what makes this result possible? Of course, it's all thanks to their shape. Katya Vinogradova's shields are designed for a lifting effect. The bend point of these shields is in the lower third at the bottom, but at the same time, it provides a very safe, very gentle lift. The only significant nuance, which is precisely why I do not use the wreath shields in 100% of all cases, is the delicate outer corner of the eyes. The thing is, because the shields are universal and adapted for all kinds of eyes and different clients' features, the outer corner of the shields is also voluminous. But if, for example, we take the dolly shaped shields, which are actually our oldest, the very first shields, their distinguishing feature is that both the outer and inner corners are flat. The center is the most voluminous, while the corners are flat. Thanks to their reduced volume, they lift the lashes very noticeably at the outer corner. That's why I sometimes still prefer the dolly-shaped shields, because I want to create a dramatic lift specifically at the outer corner. The grape shields will give me a smoother, more natural effect. Now let's take a look at another significant difference between Katya Vinogradova's shields and one major advantage. This is a cross-sectional model of the Vinog shields. I made these models for my online course, The Art of Lamination, to clearly show how the curve is formed and how to work with the solutions. So, on the model, I simulated the entire process, the application of the solutions, the whole lash curling procedure. Now, let's take a look at this model. This is the shape of the shields in cross-section. Look, what we can see here is that this is our bending point, meaning the highest point of the shield. And what happens next? If we look at the shield up there, upwards, we'll notice that after the bending point, there's no drop-off. So if you carefully look at the shield from its very bottom, it steadily goes up, up, gradually reaches its absolute peak point, and then it doesn't drop off anywhere at all. In other words, it stays at the same level. And what does that mean? It means that the lash won't curl back in the opposite direction unless, of course, we leave the solution on for too long. And that means we have the option to apply the solution higher up, not just up to the bending point, but even a bit above it if necessary, for example, to fix creases along the length or any rotations. So we can apply the solution right here. We can also apply the solution to the tips, as long as the tips don't extend beyond the working surface, right? Remember, I mentioned the situation where you choose a smaller rod size to get a more dramatic curl? Now, if we don't use that method and instead just select the correct rod size, then we can apply the solution all the way to the tips for 1, 2, or 3 minutes, for example, to fix creases or twists. That way, after lamination, the lashes will be straight and the curl will be in a single plane. There won't be any lashes sticking out in different directions because we've corrected them along their length. And this is a huge advantage of the Vinog rods. They give us the ability to correct the lashes along their length. Ladies, I want to make an important disclaimer. You need to know how to properly spread the solutions along the length. So if you leave the solutions on for too long and over dry the lashes, they'll just curl up like this and it won't turn out well. That's why when applying the solution to the tips and along the length, do it for 2 or 3 minutes, but not for the entire processing time. If you want to learn how to do lash lamination with a wow effect, creating very striking, beautiful curls, then I invite you to my online course, The Art of Lamination. Now, I'll say goodbye to you. See you soon, and bye-bye!